There's none. Florida Housing Authority smoke-free housing policy. It's recommended, approved.
Kathleen, would you like to address the board on what went on in the process of putting the policy together?
Certainly. Hi, good evening. Well, I'm not sure if you've all had a chance to read the policy, but this came out, this was a mandate that actually came out from HUD last December and went into effect in February of 2017, whereby all housing authorities receiving federal funds that run federally funded public housing programs are now mandated as of July 2018 to implement smoke-free housing. And what that basically means is that residents, employees, visitors, guests, service providers, anybody that comes onto our property needs to be aware that there is no smoking allowed in any of the units in the interior buildings, any of the common areas, or anywhere outside within 25-foot perimeter of any of our buildings. So I was fortunate enough to actually get a lot of assistance from Attorney Banthen and Marilyn Edge, who've been very helpful over the last 6 months in rolling this out. We started back in January, where we met with the residents, the Resident Advisory Board, as well as the staff in the management offices to kind of explain what the HUD final rule was and what the expectations are, what the requirements are, and also where we can make local decisions and where we have some kind of flexibility with the rule. The next step was to survey all of the residents and kind of get an idea of what our population thinks of a rule like this. How many are smokers, how many would be interested in smoking cessation programs if they were afforded to them, as well as whether or not they would support such a policy. We got a very high rate of response. About 22.5% of our population actually responded. There was a little incentive there. It was a raffle for those who who responded to our survey. So we got, I think, over 480 responses. And the overwhelming majority of them are in favor of this policy, about 74%. There was also room for comments, and I actually documented all those comments. I presented those as sort of a breakdown of what the statistical responses were by site, and also on the authority as a whole, as well as by program, by, say, family developments, elderly developments, and elderly disabled developments. So we can kind of get an idea, because there is some differences in attitude across those three programs, and presented that to the administration along with some of those comments. Many of the concerns, I think, among residents are living in multi-unit housing and being exposed to secondhand smoke, especially those who suffer from COPD or asthma, or those who just don't enjoy the smell of it in their building, are very much in favor of it. But there's also a lot of questions around where can I smoke? And so what we did is, after we did the survey and gathered all of those results, my team, who would like to actually just maybe take an opportunity to introduce yourself, Chris.
Sure.
How you play the role?
My name is Chris Banthen. I'm an attorney. I work with the Department of Public Health, and I've assisted many housing authorities in implementing this process, this new rule. There are about 100 plus housing authorities in Massachusetts that have already implemented this exact rule that you're considering, the vast majority, and the rest are pretty much moving in this direction.
And Marilyn Edge.
Hi, my name is Marilyn Edge. I work for the Health Department. I am the director of the tobacco program out of this Health Department. I cover 13 communities from Westport all the way to North Attleboro and up the 495 line. And it was a pleasure. We actually had some interesting conversations with your tenants around this policy.
Yeah, so after we did the survey, we had met in January, and the survey went out in March, and the responses were compiled, a report was put together so that we could then go out and actually hold community meetings in the developments. So we could meet face-to-face with residents and give them an opportunity to express their thoughts and feelings, and also let them know what's coming ahead, what's around the corner, rather than just throwing it at them without any notice. So back in April and May, we held 14 different resident meetings. Attendance was very strong. I think we had about 196 people participate in those 14 meetings, where we were able to gather more information and listen to the concerns of residents, and also allay some of the fears or misconceptions around a policy such as this and the legality of it. So then I went ahead and drafted a policy and shared it with Mr. Collins, and this is where we are right now. So the provisions of the policy actually kind of stick pretty much to the letter of the rule. The letter of the rule being the 25-foot buffer zone, no smoking in the units. What's included in the products that are banned is the smoking of tobacco, whether it's a pipe, a cigar, a cigarette. Marijuana is also included in there, the smoking of marijuana. So water pipes, hookahs, it's all covered in there. And I just invite you to ask any questions you might have about the process thus far, about the policy itself, any questions you might have from my panel.
I have
Yes.
a couple. First, I want to commend you for your efforts. I think it's something that's worthy and needed. Being a non-smoker myself, I despise smoke. Let's take this building for example. Where will you have a designated smoke area for the tenants and the staff?
That's a good question. There's basically three different options that housing authorities can take on, okay? One is a smoke-free campus, meaning that there is no smoking on the property whatsoever. There are a lot of housing authorities that are doing that, meaning if you'd like to smoke a cigarette, you have to go off of the property to do so. The other option is, a second option, is the designated smoking areas. Now, we have 23 developments scattered throughout the city, which can get a bit expensive when we're talking about creating handicap accessible, lit, maintained, designated smoking areas at every single development, and then a counterpart, a non-smoking counterpart. Whereas, I spoke with Mr. Collins, and it's cost prohibitive. Maybe it's something we can entertain down the line, look at CFP funds, but there's just not money in the budget to be able to feasibly do that at every single development. That said, there are, for example, in a development such as this, there's an edifice that's a freestanding 25-foot away that would comply, the gazebo that's outside, for example. I believe, we got a
Yes.
tape measure, it's probably 25 feet from the building, and as such, it would not be forbidden to smoke there. With the rule that we're proposing, which is the 25-foot buffer zone, it is going to be a challenge in terms of management enforcement, because I envision managers or staff getting out there with a tape measure every day that somebody lights up a cigarette. But I think what it will, at least what we're looking to do is, mitigate the smoking right near entrances, right under windows, right near where people live and want to breathe clean air. So by moving and by complying with the HUD minimum distance of 25 feet, we're in compliance with the regulation, but we're not dipping into our coffers where we just don't have the resources to be able to provide a designated smoking area. And that was something that both smokers and non-smoking residents really were wanted. They did express that. That was a common question. So maybe that's something that we can consider down the line. But regardless of that, we still have to move ahead and carry forth something in order just to get it aligned with what HUD is asking housing authorities to do. And so these are policies that can always be revised down the line. Does that answer your question?
No, it does in a way. Being a realist,
Yeah.
and having been involved when I was affiliated with the University of Massachusetts Dartmouth, we implemented the same problem. The problems are still going on. As students that live in dorms on weekend, staff are not around smoking. Your first option is never going to work in public housing. That's just my opinion.
Which first option? The option of smoke-free campus?
Mr. Chairman, through you,
Yes.
what's proposed for the board tonight is just the second option, which is a 25-foot
Right,
zone.
that's okay. But I'm just expressing my opinion. Option number one will never work.
And we agree.
Okay.
We agree as well, and I agree as well. And I had, when I originally drafted the policy, I did put in that it would be smoke-free campus, and just to have like the most draconian of policies there to look at, because I think if we get too liberal, or we get too freewheeling with what we're going to do, we might dig ourselves into some debt.
Yeah.
But we also want to find a happy medium, and I really agree with Mr. Collins that this is a happy medium for now.
It's good that, and again, we have get tenants and guests who are somewhat handicapped or disabled, they're not gonna go out to the
No,
25 feet.
right.
So, we implement option number 2, let's see how it goes, and then we may have to have the police smokers.
So it will be a provision within the lease that's also a requirement, so there will be lease addenda that all all tenants will have to sign and agree to. Our projected effective date was going to be October 1, but that's just not realistic, given that we have to give 30 days notice and we have to get signatures, so we're shooting for a November 1 implementation date.
And
for
Kathleen, you
this.
received the full cooperation from the Fall River Joint Tenant Council?
Absolutely. In fact,
I even agreed with option 1.
I've been invited to, yes, yeah, and I know that there's going to be mixed opinions, I'm sure a lot of managers would be in favor of option 1 as well. And I can't disagree with that, but I can see both sides too, and when you're making such a change as this, I think we also have to consider our residents, and especially those who have mobility issues. So, so that's that.
Good. Commend you, do a good job.
Thank you. Well, I just want to take this opportunity again to thank Marilyn and Chris, and she's not here, she's on vacation, but Kathy Wilbur from Seven Hills Behavioral Health also provided a lot of information to those who came to our resident meetings around smoking cessation options, different programs, different reduced cost or free programs that are available. We'll be making those available at the management offices and letting residents know that they have options for cessation if they want to. But just to be clear, we're not telling people that they can't smoke or that they must quit. They just can't smoke inside the building or within 25 feet of it.
Great,
Thank you.
Thank you. Chair, move for adoption of item 8.
Motion made.
Second.
Second. Any other questions? Hearing none. Ms. Gallagher, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Tache?
Yes.
Commissioner Underhill?
Yes.
Chairman Aguirre?
Yes. Again, Ms. Probal, thank you, and the group that was involved, Greg Gagnon, all those who put this together, Collins, everybody. Thank you so much. Next item on the agenda, Capital Fund Program 5-year plan from 2017 to 2021. Mr. Barrow, is there anything the board needs to know about this? Anything?
This is a